Matthew alive, crucified Peter upside down, boiled John in oil, hung Luke from an olive tree, dragged Mark through the streets by his neck till he died, beheaded Paul. All these men, they could have saved themselves. All they had to do was say it wasn't true, say what they wrote, what they preached, and what they saw with their own eyes was a lie. The Romans would have let them go, but they couldn't deny God. They knew it was the truth. They watched their families fed to lions, burned alive in the Colosseum, their wives, children, friends, all murdered because of what they were saying. It wasn't the truth. They wouldn't have done it, period. These men didn't die for a lie.
Don't you just love the hypocrisy of that message? And why do I say it's hypocrisy? First, let's look at modern times. So, if you paid attention to anything that happens in the world, 9/11 happened, right? You had people who were in the Islamic belief who were willing to board airplanes, and I'm not debating it was inside jobs and all that sort of thing. Just take it for face value. That you had people in those planes who took over those planes with the intentions of crashing them into buildings. They died for their belief in Allah. They died believing that Muhammad was approached by Gabriel, the angel, and Gabriel told him what the words of the Quran, and he had it dictated by some other scribes. They died for that belief. So based on this Christian thought process, that would mean that the Quran is true. I mean, people died for it. People died for it in the Crusades. You had both Christians and Muslims dying because they believed in their book. They believed in their God. They believed their God was supporting them. They died for it. So does that make both their gods true? No matter what religion we're talking about, there is always people who, after the religion has been created, people dying for that religion, believing in it. And this is every religion. When the Romans in 481, under Emperor Theodosius, decided that the entire Roman Empire was going to be Christian, there were Coptics who were Gnostics who died, believing that Jesus was not the Son of God, but was a being that was made by this God. They died for their beliefs. So does that make the Gnostic belief true? The Marcions, does that make their belief system true? They died for their belief in a variation of Christianity. But there were also worshippers of Serapis who died at the hands of the Christian Romans for their beliefs because they would not convert. There were Jews who died for their belief that Jesus was not the Messiah, still waiting on the Messiah. Matter of fact, they had several revolts that led up to the Council of Nicaea in response to not wanting to believe in Jesus, believing that they were waiting for a Messiah. So were their teachings true? Were the teachings of Serapis true? I mean, Pliny and Tacitus wrote about Serapis, so it must be true. There were people who believed in the Germanic Norse gods, Thor and Odin and all these gods. They died believing in their God. Greeks died believing in their God, died for the worship of their God. Does that make their God true? No, it does not. You see, this is a very weak argument, and it's very hypocritical, because it is the thought process that if those people knew it was a lie, then why would they die for it? They didn't know it was a lie because they were believers in it. You see, if Paul actually existed, we're not sure, we can't verify that Paul actually existed, then because of that, we can write a story and say that Paul died for it to make other people who are reading the story think that, oh, it must be true because he was willing to die for it. But Paul never met Jesus. Paul wasn't a disciple. He didn't see none of the things that happened that's spoken of in the Bible, in your New Testament Bible. So Paul gladly would have died for something that he believed in. We don't know who Peter, there's nothing about Peter and Matthew and Mark and Luke and John and all these other people that video described, that they died these horrible deaths and watched their families go and be killed by the lions. No. These are things that people just say. It's written in your Bible. It doesn't mean that it's true. Yes, people who were Christians were persecuted in the late second and third century, but that doesn't make the religion true. You know how many people died believing in Shamash, believing in Baal, that they were doing the work of of Shamash and Baal? What does it matter? You see, this type of thinking is very dangerous to people. This type of thinking creates acolytes that will be willing to do whatever their religious leader tells them to do, thinking that they're doing it for the glory of what they believe to be the one true God, or the high God of all the other gods. And this is what has led to many wars. This is what has led to many sacrifices of people, genocides. Is this belief that you are doing something based on some egotistical, narcissistic higher power. This is dangerous speech. This is dangerous teachings. There are parents who have killed their children because they believe that that is what this God has told them to do. There are people who have killed their spouses, people who genocide races, genocide tribes, because they believe their God has instructed them to do so. It's incredibly dangerous teachings. Teachings that we should be very wary of. And then when we see somebody like Jim Jones or David Koresh, we think, oh, those people were crazy. But how crazy are you to believe in the same thing? Many of you get so caught up into your nationalism, you think that God is supporting your country in every war. So you justify every war, every situation by your God. It's just man. It's simply just a delusion of man. But what do you guys think? Comment, share, subscribe, like the channel. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.